has happened, Post Shop? Just back. Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shop podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. I'm actually going to get that eventually on a t-shirt. Of course, I'm your host. It's just going to be on a t-shirt. Of course, I'm your host, and people will be going, "Who are you hosting?" I'm really excited. I've got one of my original mentors, I suppose, in the cocktail scene in the world, as well as a good friend and a longtime friend, John Gakuru. We met. I think a Facebook memory came up last couple of we physically met like 15, 16 years ago, I think maybe a little bit longer, when he came to Victoria doing Sagatiba stuff. And then the coolest thing I ever did was he invited me up to this crazy penthouse. Now I was maybe 29, 30 at the time. Very much this crazy penthouse he did in New Orleans for Tales of the Cocktail. And, you walk up as a 29, 30-year-old kid, and there's Sasha Petresky making cocktails behind the bar, Jim Meehan's on the barbecue, and you're just like, what have I done to get into this position? Because it was one of the most surreal moments of my life, and one of my favorite photos of John and I are actually on the roof overlooking the Monteleone. So I think I've pumped his tires enough to get him on the show. Thanks, John. How are you?
I'm really good.
You live in the high life in LA right there. You're on Ocean Drive in Santa Monica.
Yeah, this is LA life personified. We're driving everywhere. We spend a lot of time in the car. So the car just has to be an extension of my office and also my dog park. Everyone meet Costco. He's a Maltese poodle just chilling in the back there, taking notes of our little chat today.
Awesome. So for everyone listening, let's start at the beginning. I know that it was a while ago, but let's start at the beginning. Where did you get your break into the industry?
The story is reasonably well documented, but I'll do the elevator pitch.
Just do
I've been in the industry. It's pushing 30 years now. I started at TGI Fridays while I was at university in Southampton in the south of England. Basically everything I've got in my life I've got over a bar. So from TGI Southampton to cruise ships to lab to owning my own event company to Sagatiba to Think Spirits Australia to Sweet and Chili Australia, Sweet and Chili USA, and now working for myself with a couple of business partners at Coruscant Co. So which is where you find me today.
Unfortunately my car is in the shop right now, and I'm not sure I'd ever do it. I don't think she's got enough zhuzh to be able to pull off an office meeting.
Well, without being too bougie, the car's got Wi-Fi, so this is a really solid connection.
Mine's 62 years old, so it doesn't have anything flashy. So in the early years, what was the sort of catalyst for you to go, yep, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life? Because I remember my catalyst, and I'm curious, what was your catalyst to go, yep, this is for me?
It's still to this day a very visceral moment, and it's literally metaphorically the flicking of a light switch. When I started at Lab as a bartender, within 8 months, the bar team had insisted that I take over as general manager, as the then GM was bouncing off to be global brand ambassador for Grey Goose, Dimmy. And they didn't want anybody coming in from outside to kind of mess with our flow. And even after such a short time as bartender, they basically boosted me to GM, where I was voluntold. In that moment, I really remember it so clearly in Lab, just flicking the switch. I was 24 years old, and I just said to myself, I'm like, well, clearly this is where you're supposed to be. This is what you're good at. And it was in that moment that I decided there and then that I would strive to be the best I could be every single day. And that continues to this day.
Wow. So which from all that, have you had mentors in your life that have guided you into them? Because you going from, it is a big step going from GM of a bar, and Lab was legendary for all the youngsters listening to. When you're coming up in Australian ranks, a lot of people came from Lab to Australia, worked in Australia. Lab was legendary in those early 2000s. What was those moments that sort of took you to the next level when you go into events and brand building and all that sort of stuff?
So the first bit was about mentors. Yes, I've had lots. Some are still with us today, some have passed, but what I continue to say to this day is I've learned more from the people I've worked with who I didn't like and didn't respect, and treated me like shit. I've learned more from them than I have from the legends that have helped, guide and shape the
Mm,
person that I am, the professional that I am, and the opportunities that I have today. So while I have a long list of superstars that have helped shape how I talk, how I communicate, my brand of hospitality, and so on. I also have a list of people who I'm like, let me just remember what not to do. Let me remember how shitty I feel in this moment and make sure that I never recreate that for anybody else that
mm,
passes through my universe. So I think the moral of that story is, sure, you're going to have great mentors, but when you come across somebody that treats you like shit and um, is the antithesis of your own moral compass and personality and persona, remember that. Remember how you feel in those
mm.
moments, and make sure that you never recreate them. In your personal or professional life.
That's amazing. So when you moved to Australia for Think Spirits and you're building up these brands and that sort of thing, how did you make that leap over from events and GM of Lab into like brand building and representing brands? I know you were with Sagativa for a long time and you built that from zero to infinity. Like where was that sort of jump in? Because like being a brand ambassador is very different to being a brand builder.
Yeah, it sure is. It's a great question, and the honest answer is that I played the Jim Carrey role in Yes Man. So I have only ever applied for one job in my professional life, and that was my very very first job at TGI Fridays when I was 17. I actually applied for that. We had to audition, and I got the job. And every other job I've had since, which isn't many, working for myself now, I think is like my seventh job in nearly 30 years. Um, and yeah, I've took a leap of faith. These opportunities presented them. The next opportunity presented itself at a moment that was just right for me. And either that's, whatever you believe in, whatever your belief system is, I feel like the university brought the universe brought the next opportunity to me when I needed it, and not before and not after. And it was up to me to say yes or no. And every time I said yes, it's lucked out, and I've been in those jobs or those roles for several years. The shortest job role I had was cruise ship bartender, which was 3.5 years.
Wow.
And the longest role I had to date was at Sagatiba, which was almost 7 years. And now working for myself at Coruscant, we're pushing 5 years. So, I, I don't know what it was. I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but it's kind of saying yes, trusting in who you are and how you navigate through life, being a social and being a social chameleon, being able to shape shift and adjust, and you know be ready for change. Change is a constant. It's coming, coming at us
Mhm.
rapid fire all day, every day, and it's how we adapt to what life throws at us that helps us adapt to the personal and professional things in front of us. I don't want to say challenges, but whatever life presents, it's how we react to it that determines the outcomes.
So let's just jump forward a little bit. Like, what's your current role? You're working for yourself now. What's the company that you're running, and what do you do with that?
Sure. So a few years ago, early in the pandemic, myself and my business partner, Emily Weldon, set up a small, humble little agency called Coruscant Co. Emily's still based in Australia. I'm obviously in Los Angeles. And the vision was to build a company that would provide a lifestyle that we wanted for ourselves. So it wasn't about, the daily or nightly grind. It was about
Mhm.
working hard, working with people that we wanted to work with, and then leaving the people, places, and products in better shape than we found them. Now, is that a traditional? Are we a traditional consultancy agency? Possibly in some cases. We'll accept a brief. We'll respond to that brief. We'll cost it out. We'll go do the work. All of that traditional stuff. But there is another layer of Coruscant Co that really is about lifestyle. Living in America for the last almost, I think it's 8 years now, maybe a bit more. Um, you you learn a different, or I have learned a different perspective on what success is. Success is really personal. I don't bend to the traditions or norms or societal norms. Success is for me to determine and define. So when we set Coruscant Co up, it was really about working hard, having fun, working with people that we love and products that we respect, and ensuring that we actually work, that we're working because we want to, not because we have to. And it sounds so easy to say, but it's actually really difficult to implement. And so as we've gone on this journey with Coruscant Co, new opportunities have presented themselves based around the fact that, I'm now begrudgingly referred to as a veteran bartender, and which makes me want to vomit. And you can see, like, I'm fighting the signs of aging every day. But
I just let it go now. I'm just like, screw it. The white beard's here.
I haven't hit that point yet. I'm still fighting. But as I've gotten older, different things have become important. Earlier on in my career, it was about looking cool and the right shake and what outfit I was wearing. Now I've certainly given up on that. The standard uniform for SoCal is black on black on black, hoodie, black jeans, black sneakers, and I've for years I've thoroughly rejected dress codes, but that's a different podcast. So today, as I've gotten older, different things have become important, and other things I've let go. So I've got to a place in my career where it's really important to me to give back or pay forward, depending on how you look at it. And as a proud Kenyan, I was born in Nairobi, grew up and was educated in the south of England, and then I've been a global citizen ever since, in the kind of truest sense of the phrase. And now it's become even more important that I pay back or pay forward the things that I've learned and can share with the bartending communities in places that I'm able to touch, and very fortunate to be able to travel to and visit.
Yeah, I always see your check-ins on Facebook, and I'm not even sure if you check in every single flight that you do, because I'm like, this is absolutely mental. Because you were always one, like, it was yourself, Angus Winchester, and I think Jacob Bryars or Simon Ford were always like, yeah, who was the brand ambassador with the most miles at the end of the year. But that's a good segue, like, because we were talking about in the green room. I'm a small market guy. I'm based here in Victoria. I love Canada. Canada's a small market as well, but a whole different animal. You've been doing a ton of work in Africa over the last couple of years. Let's dive into that. Like, what, obviously, Kenyan born, proud African boy. Like, what has driven you to sort of like start pushing that culture? Because it's a massive market, but still a small culture. So how are you sort of diving into that and building that?
Well, to be honest, again, as I've gotten older, reconnecting with my Kenyan heritage has become really, really important. And before I started pointing my energy towards the bar communities in Kenya and other African countries, which we'll come to, it was really important for me to touch the ground in a really authentic way in Kenya, and really genuinely reconnect with my father's side of the family. So my father is Black Kenyan, Kikuyu, and my mother is white English. But on my mother's side, there were 4 generations of my mother's side who were Church of England missionaries in Kenya, which is how I came to be. So really understanding my kind of Kenyan history and heritage, as much as I may be diaspora today, led me down a path of wanting to spend more and more and more time in Kenya. From there, as being in the bar industry, you're immediately given a ton of recommendations. Go here, go there, go see this person. Oh, John, you've got to meet this. As we network and in our the tiny island that is the top of the hospitality, the hospitality pyramid. So I did that while I was there on various holidays, connecting with what makes me me, and really finding the words to be able to articulate that confidently instead of stammering around it. I met some amazing people in the Kenyan hospitality community, then one thing leads to another, and I'm on the board of directors of Tales of the Cocktail, and we at Tales we're looking for ways to authentically educate, elevate, inspire, support bartending communities, underserved bartending communities, and that then piece by piece of this jigsaw puzzle led to a sort of something that I could bring to the boardroom at Tales of the Cocktail. I'm like, okay, this is it. I've got my seat at this global non-profit entity that genuinely wants to educate and inspire bartending communities around the world. I've got something I can bring to the table. So the next step from that was, okay, as a Kenyan, I've spent quite a bit of time back in Kenya meeting some industry folk, bar industry folk. You cannot authentically enter the African market without being there. You can't do what we're trying to do on Zoom. It's just not possible. And to your point about small markets and small communities, just by way of example, Kenya is a country of approximately 80 million. There's about 130 plus local dialects and languages. So we talk about Kenya as one of 54 African communities or African countries. It is just within the borders of Kenya alone are all these, micro communities and languages and cultures. So I said earlier that shape-shifting and being a social chameleon, well, holy hell, that is really paying off today. As I work to navigate just around Nairobi, forget like leaving the big cities, or the coast or the lodges and reserves in the game parks. Like it is really, it's really incredible that the energy, the diversity, the food, the spices, the ingredients, like all of these, the music, the fashion, all of these energetic things emanate from each of the 54 countries across the continent of Africa. And navigating that landscape has become really, I've got goosebumps talking about it now, has really become really important to me at a very deep and meaningful place in my head and my heart. I think it's just such an incredible continent that is so wildly diverse. It is scary for businesses outside Africa looking to authentically, work anywhere in the continent. And equally, it's challenging for businesses, brands, from Africa out to the rest of the world. So there's this challenge of, coming into Africa and landing authentically in whatever country it may be. And then an equal and opposite challenge for businesses in Africa who deserve, their rightful place in international markets. So it's challenging in both directions, which has really been a fascinating learning curve that you cannot learn off the internet or AI, or you have to go and sit with those communities, listen, learn, ask better questions, and that's what I've been doing for three and a half, maybe 4 years now. Really, like with a vision and a mission.
So how like brand representation, the international brand representation and space, because as you were saying, the back and forth, the inside and the outside, how is that leading to bartender education and brand visits and the stuff that I think we probably do take for granted for a fair bit in Europe and North America? We take it for granted a fair bit. How is that sort of playing out?
Well, I mean, the pace of change is wild. The energy around the continent of Africa is just, it's palpable when you're on the ground. There are industry leaders in most of the major, more developed cocktail scenes that have emerged over the last few years that have led the growth of things like takeovers and exchange programs. International bars and bartenders feel much more comfortable heading to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa than ever before, seeking to understand and learn from those African bar communities about their ingredients, what's special, what's different, what techniques do you use. There's 7 different ways to use yucca. Like, there's all sorts of weird and wonderful things that Africa leads in, because they're unique to the continent. And there are several bars and bartenders around the world that have now, visited different African countries, done exchange programs. With them, they bring, their techniques from their bars and their countries, from Greece and Italy to Singapore and Hong Kong and, Shanghai, and like several American venues have all popped up, either at Ajabu in Johannesburg and Cape Town, or Accra Bar Show in Ghana, or Nairobi Bar Show, Kenya Bartenders Week. There's so many of these bartender-centric, community-focused Lagos Cocktail Week, community-focused events that are owned and led by these leaders of their respective bar communities. And it's really wonderful to see that change, and now to begin to see the ripple effect of that work. For example, quickly, I was just in Kenya working with Procera Gin, judging a cocktail competition, and I did the same in November last year. To see the growth in skill and cocktail confidence, local ingredient use, from November to November, in 12 months, I have witnessed, just in this one small example, the elevation of cocktail creativity, the kind of Kenyan pride in a luxury gin, and Kenya's indigenous ingredients is really, it gives me so much confidence in the bar industry across Africa and the rest of the world's ability to help grow it.
Where do you see your place in this growth over the next couple of years? And do you have a plan for the next couple of years to sort of keep you got that smile on your face? You got the John Gakuru, let me tell you something.
Yeah, still do.
What's your plan, and where do you see yourself in the fabric of all that over the next couple of years?
So Coruscant Co was set up to genuinely as a kind of lifestyle opportunity to leave the people, places, and products in better shape than we found them. Africa is unique and complex and diverse and exciting, and I needed a different platform to really focus our energy on what's possible from Africa out to rest of world in.
Mm-hmm.
So I've created an entity called Calabash Africa. Calabash, for those that don't know, is the gourd that is on every meal table, family celebration. It's the thing that people drink from. They pass it around. It's communal. It's really about sharing. It's about community. So Calabash is a name for this entity that I really love, because it really does encapsulate everything that we're trying to do, right? We're trying to bring people together, break bread, share, and work on our common interests versus what makes us different. So Calabash, the idea with Calabash Africa is to be the connective tissue between African businesses looking to enter rest of world, and rest of world looking to authentically arrive on the continent. What we plan to do, and this is still very much in its kind of inception and creative stage, or our discovery phase, I should say. What we plan to do is work with the individual experts in each market. So it's not about Calabash landing on the ground. It's about Calabash connecting the needs, wants, and desires of businesses looking to arrive into whichever African country, and connecting them with the right people on the ground, the right cultural fit to authentically do whatever it is they need to do. Be it a brick and mortar, like a hotel chain wants to, open in Accra. Okay, Calabash can connect you with the right team on the ground to execute your vision. Meanwhile, Calabash can also interpret, if you like, the cultural sensitivities that each market genuinely requires in order for that business to win in that country. So my plan for the next few years is to listen and learn and be that connective tissue, helping brands or businesses land somewhere else around the world. I had some solid conversations at Ajabu last week with a couple of African distilleries that are right at that moment where they're looking to explore what export looks like, to Europe, US, Middle East, Asia, etc., Australasia. And we have that experience to be able to help those brands navigate that equally, culturally diverse landscape. And likewise, that example of a hotel in Accra is real. There is a hotel project which I'm not hoping, that I am manifesting that we are a part of. And we'll be able to help this hotel chain, which is a big global hotel brand, do something that a lot of these international multinationals don't do, which is plonk their hotel down. And because it works elsewhere around the world, the brand strength of whatever, name a global hotel brand, will see us through. And what we're trying to do is impart a sense of cultural fluency, which is the Calabash plan, so that we can do something different and actually embed this global hotel chain deeply within the, certainly from a food and beverage perspective, within the city and country that hotel will exist in. So it's not just brands, it is physical brick and mortar opportunities as well.
With that cultural influence, I was just thinking about that. What sort of cultural differences is there from the Western world to African countries in the way of doing business? The one big thing is, like, when I went to Singapore, we had to open up a bar and restaurant in 6 weeks. So like 6 weeks is already like dirt floor to completely open is already insane to try and do. But of course we had Singaporean Indians, we had Singaporean Chinese, and each one has their own sort of cultural way of doing business. Like Singaporean Chinese want to get to know you a little bit. It's not the deal is not getting done in the first meeting. You need to like get to know each other. And same thing with the Indians. They want to get to know you a little bit before they even start working with you. What are those sort of cultural influences that you're talking about when it comes to business that changes from the Western hemisphere, where it's usually like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, shake a hand, we got the deal, let's go, compared to like African, especially when you were talking about 130 dialects in just Kenya alone? What are those sort of differences there?
It's a great question, and anyone listening to this from Africa will be starting to chuckle, no doubt. The ways of doing business are very, very different. There are cultural norms that vary by country. There is business etiquette that varies by country, and being able to again shape shift both personally and professionally is the key to winning business in any African country.
Mm-hmm.
So broadly speaking, business is done. There's a lot of kind of reciprocal exchange. You scratch mine, I'll scratch yours.
Mm-hmm.
There is a degree of informality to some things that are really formal in other markets. And then there are the complexities of geopolitics and local regional politics. There are some countries where you might need to go up country and sit with the chief whose tribal land you are hoping to work on, and really understand how to navigate that landscape for one's client or for the business or whatever it may be. So this is a topic that I'm going to just put a broad brushstroke across and say that Africa is not a one-size-fits-all continent. There are micro communities that require sensitive cultural dialogue and exchange, and navigating that can be scary. And there are businesses that will put Africa in the too hard basket because of these perceived hurdles. They're not hurdles if you know how to navigate them. And once you do, the opportunity cost is phenomenal.
Interesting. That's fantastic. Well, let's change up for gears a little bit when it comes to, I know you've been a part of World Class for many, many years, and that's where we've had a lot of fun because I would just show up and just hang out for a week, which Michael would just let me do that. And it was always incredible. How has the World Class experience changed for you over the years you've been involved? Especially for the globals this year was in Toronto, and you and Michael were the ones that pitched globals in Toronto and won. And I was privy to that last year in Halifax, and I just knew you two together are a powerhouse. And then when you're giddy, like when you're giddy and just know that the energy you're going to bring to the presentation is going to get the presentation sorted out. How has things changed for World Class over the years you've been involved on the global stage?
Well, I will say, we spoke earlier about mentors. Michael Armistead is certainly one of those for me. And I think um, what Diageo World Class has done for me, specifically my time with Team Canada, is demonstrate just how human our industry is. We are not in a glass bottle and liquid business. We are in a human business. And the more completely and holistically businesses and brands understand that, the more success they're going to find in their endeavors. So the way another metaphor for what I'm trying to say is that without the bartending humans and communities in our universe, these glass bottles, be it Diageo World Class, Kettle Ones and Johnny Walkers and Don Julio's, etc. These are inanimate glass bottles that sit silently on a back bar. They can't speak, they can't dance. So, to everyone watching this, you will all have had an experience where you've sat at a bar, and one or more bottles has kind of danced or talked to you. You've got a positive emotive response with several bottles on the back bar, and then you have no emotive response to several others, which is fine. So what's the difference between the bottles and brands that have spoken to you and given you that little smile in the corner of a lip? Everything about that experience is human. There would have been a bartender that made a recommendation, told a funny story, a brand ambassador gave you a training session, you went to a party, whatever it might have been that has given you that positive emotive response. It can only be imbued upon that inanimate glass bottle by a human. And then that bottle requires another human to pass on that positive emotive response to you. So 83% of consumers around the world will select a brand based on bartender recommendation. So everything I've just said in the way that I've said it has come through what I've learned through the Diageo World Class platform. The World Class platform and the global competition is just one of a much larger project and a way to imbue these inanimate glass bottles with a persona, with a personality, with a human story. And the World Class platform does exactly that. Now, demonstrably, the most successful world-class country in the world is Canada. Hence why we hosted, look at me, I'm an honorary Canadian when it comes to World Class, with love in my heart. So we have embodied through Michael's work this idea of community. The World Class alumni in Canada are absolute benchmarks for how the World Class program could and should work. It is human. As a result of really understanding that connection, what it means to be a bartender in your community, to bring other community members into your huddle, the net benefit is that those bartenders, that community will always recommend the brands where the human connection has left an indelible mark on how they go to work. So my world-class journey has led me to a place where I'm able to say everything that I just said with the confidence and animation and passion that I hope comes through in this interview or this conversation. World Class has really helped me articulate and demonstrate the power of bartender recommendation, number one, the power of community and bringing your bartending community together as often as possible. And then storytelling, it's really, really, really important. And those are the things that will move the needle for brands in any market in the on-premise.
So I started with that story at the very beginning about and I think you know this story. I was a big passionate proponent of Sakatiba when I first came to Canada because it was the only cachaça on the market that was good. The other ones were just horrible things. So Sakatiba, and then I don't even know how we got connected. I think the rep was like, "Oh, this John Gakuru guy, the international brand ambassador for Sakatiba, is coming to Canada. Would you want him to do something in Victoria?" I'm like, You did something in Vancouver. I came to Vancouver for that. And then the next trip you came to Victoria, which we're a small market. I love it. And then, of course, I talked about that New Orleans trip. And like, those are things that when I was a young bartender in Canada, like a little clueless, like sort of trying to find my place, I was just like, why am I here? And that brand connection through you was so strong until you left. And then I was like, fuck it.
You and many others, bro.
but talking about that brand thing, and you work with brands directly now, I do a little bit of brand work with craft distilleries and stuff, and they'll go, oh, well, look at this packaging. This package is beautiful, and I spent this much money on a bottle, and da 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 da. I'm like, cool. What's your story, and how are you going to connect with bartenders and consumers? And they're like, well, they'll just buy it because the packaging is nice. Sweet. How do you slow down that sort of mentality with brand owners when they're trying to break into new markets, when they've come to you to help? Because I would say it's very passion driven, and either the packaging's horrible and it's got a really great story, or it's really pretty packaging with absolutely, oh, tequila's big now, so I'm going to launch a tequila brand. How do you slow that brand message? How do you slow brand owners down and go, hey, let's focus this up properly to get to market properly?
Great question. So at Coruscant Co, we break down how we go to work and how we think into 4 components. Discovery, or discover, define, develop, deploy. So basically that is a path to kind of, I hate using the word success because it's subjective, but in the discovery phase, we find that we are always pulling the handbrake. So slowing a brand owner down is a great phrase, because we do that intentionally. The quickest way to poke a hole in a brand owner's ego is to come in with whatever bottle it is they're hoping. Go to a bar, sit down at a bar, and talk to a bartender and ask for their honest, unfettered feedback. And you'll get it. It may not be what you want to hear, but you'll get it. And even if it's a short survey, maybe we visit, 5 or 10 venues in the same city, and we speak to, 10 or 15 bartenders across those venues. By the end of that, you're going to start to build a kind of picture for how your brand is going to be perceived before you do all of the work.
Also, different bars, like not just all the fancy cocktail bars. Oh, I want my tequila on the back bar of every fancy cocktail. Let's go to a dive bar. Let's go to a pub. Let's see how they feel.
Right, exactly right. So I've done that many times, and I'm so fortunate to be in a position to be able to say no. That doesn't happen very often because the bills still need to get paid. But I tend to say no when the brand owner has such an absolute conviction in the success of their product before doing any outreach, any work, talking to anyone else. So a brand will get created in a silo, and or an echo chamber where everyone gets patted on the back for a job well done, before the work gets done. And it's we pride ourselves today on the rigor of our discovery phase with any client that comes to us. And it can be a brand, it can be a brick and mortar physical building, be that a bar, a restaurant, hotel, whatever. There is work to do to either prove concept, i.e., wow, Coruscant Co, we love the pack, we love the liquid, we love the brand story. Now let's reverse engineer how we bring it alive and make it human. We love those projects. We also love getting in on the ground floor. Hey guys, I've got this idea. The funding is not an issue. What do we do and how do we do it? What are the gaps in the market? I've got experience in producing a gin. How do we make that different? Gin is noisy. It's very competitive. Parts of the gin category are growth is slowing. Other bits, growth is still healthy. And. So we need to discover and define the project before we develop the plan, before we go and deploy that plan and execute. So it's these, we slow down to speed up is how we go to work. And there is a lot of thinking, a lot of data that we need to apply to ensure that the decisions we make are both executable and will deliver results, whatever the results may be. Some brand owners want sales volume, 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 volume. Other brand owners like, we want to build a brand for the long term. How do we do it? Those are the ones we love.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of craft spirit brands and developed product and juice, and I've had some distilleries come to me like, "Why are you so expensive when you like bring a product to market?" I'm like, "Well, when we develop the product, then I take it around to all the bars, and like what you were saying, take it around to all the bars, put it into a cocktail, see what it looks like, what a classic cocktail looks like." And all the brands that I've done, well, have been very successful and gone on to success, but some are just like, I remember one craft distillery coming to me 6 months later going, "We've improved the recipe. Can we take back all the old bottles and we'll give you these new ones in replacement?" I'm like, that's why I'm expensive to bring a product to brands. So you're not doing this after 6 months.
Measure twice,
Um,
cut once.
yeah. I don't want to take up too much of your time because I can literally talk to you all day long, and you know that we've had amazing conversations, whether sober or intoxicated, over the years.
I was clearly overserved. It wasn't me.
So what are you really excited about in 2026? We've covered a whole bunch of stuff over this last 45 minutes. What are you really excited for 2026?
A lot, like at this time of the year, every year we're all like, woof, next year's our year. Because it's challenging out there and at many levels, not just the global hospitality sector. The drinks industry is under pressure. Society is changing, generations are shifting how they consume and where they consume, and where they seek out things to add to their their social currency. So the way people shop, the way people seek out new things has shifted a lot. And so I'm excited in 2026 to be able to land some of the work that we've been doing in the background. I'm really excited for Calabash Africa to continue that journey with the friends, peers, colleagues around the world and on the ground in Africa, across Africa. And yeah, we've got some lovely irons in the fire that include a wonderful Italian gin called Quattro Gatti. We're looking to expand our scope of work with them, which means putting our own brand ambassadors on the ground in the US and Italy, and which will give us a footprint in Europe, which is really exciting. My travel calendar is filling up already. I've committed to quite a few things: the Caribbean Cocktail Tour in January, the Nairobi Bar Show in February, the Gulf Bar Show at the end of March. I've committed to Accra Bar Show in Ghana in August. In March, I'm going to return to South Africa, to Ajabu in both Joburg and Cape Town. We've got some irons in the fire for brick and mortar consulting in Joburg, which was off the back of last week in Cape Town. So all of these things, begin to, it's a complicated jigsaw puzzle. And, when you sat in front of a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle and you're like, I'm never going to find the little bit of cloud and blue sky. But then as you start to put all the other jigsaw pieces in place, you're only left with a few. And, it feels like this last 4.5 years of Coruscant Co have been about, finding the corners of the jigsaw puzzle, and and we're starting to fill in towards the middle. And it feels really, that's actually a metaphor I've just thought about now, but it's really true. It really feels like, we found the four corners. We're working our jigsaw puzzle in towards the middle with a few more pieces to go. And it's really, really exciting. I've got nothing but positivity for the road ahead, so long as we keep it human. We continue to build community. We continue to a certain extent ignore the geopolitics at a macro level and focus on controlling the controllables, and doing the things that make us happy and fulfilled. That's my mission. From age 24, to bring it back around to the start of this conversation, I flicked a switch. I'm going to fight to be the best version of myself I can be, and I continue to do that every day. I wake up every day and I try and be a better version of myself than I was yesterday. And the only way to do that is to spend time with the people that I love, just like you, Shawn.
Okay, so we're at the end of the podcast where I asked the 5 deep podcast questions. They're extremely deep. You've answered a couple already, sort of, throughout this, because this is next level compared to what I expected.
I'll get Costco. I'll get Costco to answer one of them.
me and you getting together on a live stream always sort of ends up in debauchery, but like this has been next level stuff. What is the one lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry that forward in your life, personal or career?
Sort of covered this one with great mentors and negative mentors. I've stolen a bunch of quotes and sayings, and I guess if I had one quote that helps guide me every single day in the good times and the bad, comes from Nelson Mandela. I never lose. I either win or learn.
If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why?
We are all here for a tiny blip in the grand scheme of things. It uses a lot less energy to be happy, to give with no expectation of return. If you do that, you will quickly discover a sense of deep fulfillment, that you feel like you're doing the right thing with the right people around you for the right reasons.
Fuck, that gave me goosebumps. Looking back on your journey, what is something you wish you understood earlier in life?
It's just bars and booze. It's okay. There are some folks that get so wound up about, the silliest things. Like we're not, we're not curing cancer. It's just bars and booze. It's going to be okay.
How do you define success, and has your definition of it changed over time? Which we did cover a little bit, but I want a succinct answer.
Oof. I'm not sure I have one. Success is subjective, right? I'll give a very quick story. Another one of my mentors, Patrick Borg from Think Spirits Australia, love him to bits. I would say, Pat, look at this, it's really successful. And he would immediately say, what does success mean? I'm like, So anytime you hear anyone say, this has been really successful, have them define what success means to them. Once you've listened to that definition, their definition of success, you can then frame your response to that versus just agreeing or disagreeing. For example, oh my God, this brand is so successful. We've sold 150 cases in last month. I'm like, okay, what does success mean? What was the goal? Benchmark that against other brands in your category or your competitive set. So success is really subjective. Sorry, this wasn't succinct at all, but when you hear the phrase, this has been really successful or this is really successful, my advice is have them define what success means to them. Then you can respond appropriately.
What do you hope your legacy will be, and what steps are you taking to build it?
I already know that the people and venues that I've been a part of, from TGI Fridays to, through to Lab Bar and more, have gone on to spawn generations of venue owners that have kept the art of hospitality alive. I would like my legacy to be for younger generations or next generations to see me, in that group of folk that have fought for the humanness inside a huge multinational $1 trillion business.
Man, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're a busy man, and I'm glad I got you in LA and not wherever you were going to be next week.
Mexico City.
That's right. Yeah, I think I did see that plan. But thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And good luck with 2026. Like, it looks like you're building something absolutely spectacular. And yeah, it's fantastic.
Thanks, mate. And thanks for doing what you do with the Post Shift podcast, mate. Love it.
I appreciate it, man. Well, I'll chat to you real soon.
Take it easy.
Thank you, buddy. All right, Post Shifters. That's it for now. Keep your standards high, your spirits neat, and your team tighter than your forecast. Catch you next week on the Post Shift podcast.